just sang to me. Thank you. That was so beautiful. I know, we're just all a bunch of tears today. It's beautiful. It's so beautiful. Okay, I'm going to start with a joke because y'all know how good I am at telling jokes. No, seriously, when I was in school, they were like, you need to memorize them. I was like, that's not going to happen. So I'm just telling you what I was told. Not real good at it, but I'm all right with it. So, okay. A priest in a small town was called away for an emergency on a Sunday afternoon while he was about to hear confessions. Not wanting to leave the confessional unattended and having no one else to assist him, he called his rabbi friend from across the street and asked him to cover for him. The rabbi told him he wouldn't know what to do or say. The priest told him to come over and he'd stay with him for a little while and to show him what to do. The rabbi dutifully came over. The rabbi and the priest were in the confessional working out the details. A few minutes later, a woman came in and said, "Father, forgive me, for I have sinned." And the priest asked, "What did you do?" And the woman said, "I committed adultery." The priest said, "Well, how many times?" And she said, 3 times. "Say 2 Hail Marys, put $5 in the donation box, go and sin no more." A few minutes later, a man entered the confessional. He said, "Father, forgive me, for I have sinned." "Priest, what did you do?" The man says, "I committed adultery." The priest says, "Well, how many times?" And he says, 3 times. So the priest responds again, "Say 2 Hail Marys, put $5 in the box, go and sin no more." So the rabbi told the priest that he thought he understood the procedure, so the priest left. Here comes the cream. A few minutes later, another woman entered and said, "Father, forgive me, for I have sinned." The rabbi says, "What did you do?" She says, "I committed adultery." "How many times?" the rabbi asks. The woman says, "Once." The rabbi says, "Go do it 2 more times. We have a special this week. 3 for $5. See, I'm not so bad at telling jokes. So wouldn't it be so much easier if that's all we had to do in terms of forgiveness, and then we could go do it some more because they got a special running, right? And then just put money in the box, say a couple of Hail Marys. Wouldn't that be awesome? Yeah, that's not what it's like. As you know, that's not what it's like. So I shared with you guys, we're looking at forgiveness, and we're looking at it through a new lens, because remember, that is our theme for this year: new year, new light, and looking at forgiveness through a new lens. And that is, we're taking on Colin Tipping, a way of forgiveness, and what he offers is this idea of radical forgiveness. So what does that mean, radical forgiveness? It means that there's nothing to forgive in the first place. Those of you who are Course of Miracle students will recognize this, that the teaching is, because he is a student of Course in Miracles, the idea is that it happens as it did for your greater growth, for your soul's growth, right? That's what he says. So there isn't anything to forgive, but get our human self to take that on, right? So that's what the practice is. That's what we're looking at, is radical forgiveness. And what I shared with y'all is my own story of forgiveness. And I said to y'all that I came out of a sermon and I was really, really, really angry because the minister pretty much said I needed to forgive no matter what. And I was like, yeah, no, you don't know the story. Because here's the thing, if you knew the story, you wouldn't think that. You wouldn't agree. You would know I was right. There's no forgiveness that I need to be doing here. So I recognized, like, oh, wow, I haven't forgiven. I'm stuck in this. I'm blaming someone else. What do I need to do? So I became willing, which is willing to receive, right? I became willing. That's always the foundation. And I sat down and I wrote down the story from my point of view. And y'all know that takes time, a lot of pages, a lot of, like that when you write the story, right? Because you're telling your part and you're really invested. You're really invested. And then I thought to myself, but what is that other person's part? What could that other person say to me? And I wrote that person's story in my non-dominant hand because that's my vulnerable hand, right? I don't write with this hand. And what came out was as if the person was dictating to me. Like it wasn't me, it was coming through me. And the fact that it came through me, I was able to see, wow, that's the truth. I was able to see my part. I was able to see I had responsibility. I was able to see that I have a self in me that is my know-it-all self. Oh, I've told y'all. That's why I have this practice. I have a know-it-all self, and I tend to think she's right. And let me tell you, she shows up over and over and over again. And so thankfully that was the gift in that, right? That was the gift. That's what experience was about. So that I could come to my higher self, and that higher self only connects with the divine. That's the whole point. That's why we forgive. And that's what radical forgiveness does. So what he found, Colleen Tipping, is that he finds that, and he worked with a lot of people on forgiveness, and what he found is like, honestly, when people started to doing this work, they were able to see the divine gift. They were able to see this happened for a reason. However, they started beating themselves up, and it was harder for them to forgive themselves. So that's what today is about. What do we do to forgive ourselves? So like always, I start with an affirmation. So it's a simple affirmation, and it's just, I forgive myself. You can say that, right? I forgive myself. That's easy enough. Say it again. I forgive myself. Now, there are times when you may say it, but it doesn't resonate, right? So what do we do with that? I'm going to equip you with a second affirmation because maybe the first one feels difficult. The second one is, I am willing to receive my own forgiveness. I am willing to receive my own forgiveness. How does that feel? Some of the looks on some of your faces. I love it. I love that I get to see it. I am willing to receive my own forgiveness. Do you hear the vulnerability? That's the foundation of the work, willingness. It always takes willingness. Mustard seed of faith, mustard seed of willingness. So this morning I want to share Colleen Tipping's idea of radical self-forgiveness, and it's based on his book, Radical Self-Forgiveness, The Direct Path to True Self-Acceptance. Because here's the thing, if you have forgiven yourself, you accept yourself. And if you accept yourself, you love yourself, right? That's just how it works. So 3 things I want to do this morning. 1, define radical self-forgiveness. 2, define what is the self. Because here's the thing that he points out. Who is the self that's forgiving the self? Right? Who's the self forgiving the self? We're a multitude of selves, right? The song, We Belong, that was so perfect. I'm this, I'm that, I'm the other, and we belong. That was like so perfect because that's what we are, a multitude of selves. So that's what that's what he says. We need to look at the multitude of selves. And then he says, and I'm sure y'all will know this, and then the last step is understanding that the more that we put the multiple selves in service to the I am self, the easier it will be to forgive. Does that make sense? So the ego self, the multiple selves, you say to them, you know what? I'm going to surrender you to the I am self, because the I am self is a self with spiritual intelligence. The I am self knows that there's always connection, no matter what. It's just I've shifted away from it, so now I'll shift back. That's radical self-forgiveness. So first step, define radical forgiveness. He found, and this, as I said before, it came out of his own work, and just to give you a sense of where he was, is he had 2 divorces, And in the first divorce, the wife had betrayed him. And so he had a really hard time. He was stuck in victimhood. And as he's stuck in that victimhood, he married someone else. And so in the first time, he felt really brokenhearted. Second time, he marries someone else. Well, that person was younger. She wanted children. He already had 3. He didn't want children. So he realized, oh, this is a conversation I probably should have had before. First thing he realized. Second thing he realized is he's not going to go forward with the marriage. So then what happens to him, it's like he understood the first wife and was able to forgive her for the pain. But he was having a much harder time forgiving himself for the pain and the anguish he put the second person through. So that's where this work came from. What can I do to forgive myself, because it is harder to forgive myself than someone else? So he witnessed his own experience, and he says, here's the thing. I'm going to come up with a methodology for self-forgiveness. Now, this methodology, as you probably already know, is based on the same assumptions as radical forgiveness. So I want to give you 4 of the assumptions. First, we are spiritual beings choosing to have a human experience, but without awareness. Meaning our journey here is to become aware, to awaken to the divine, right? Second, we live in 2 worlds simultaneously, the world of spirit and the world of humanity. Third, we at the soul level, y'all need to breathe, get precisely what we need in our lives for our spiritual growth. Keep breathing. I know. Keep breathing. I know. Some of us are clenched. I get it. Breathe and start letting it go. How we judge what we get determines whether we experience life as painful or joyful. So I'm going to say it again. We, at the soul level, and don't throw anything at me, get precisely what we need in our lives for our spiritual growth. How we judge what we get determines whether we experience life as painful or joyful. I know, some of you look a little confused. I understand. I know. And then, through relationships, we grow and learn. Through relationships, we are healed and are returned to wholeness and truth. So they're doing it to you so you can grow. And you're doing it to them so they can grow and you can grow. I'm sorry. I'm in it too with y'all. I'm in it too. I'm doing it with y'all. So what is radical forgiveness? It is the process of taking these assumptions as our truth. Just take them as your truth, right? Even if you don't believe them, I'm willing to receive them as my truth. I'm willing to receive them as my truth. And then it's looking afresh at what you have done that you feel guilty about, and then opening to a new interpretation based on spiritual reality that everything happens for a reason. That's what it is. Willing to take these assumptions as your truth and then looking at it afresh, whatever it is, the new lens, the new light, looking at it, looking at the guilt, the shame, whatever it is, and then knowing there's actually a spiritual reality here and nothing ever happened, right? Yeah, and it happened for a reason. So, obviously we do it to have good health. It's essential for our spiritual growth. We do it for more freedom, right? And more joy. Because the more we're not carrying that around, right? I remember someone once, I used to make friends at Starbucks. I don't go as often as I used to. We got an espresso machine, but I used to go a lot, and probably why he got us an espresso machine. And I, of course, y'all probably know me, make friends everywhere. And once I walked in, and it was my Starbucks friend, said to me, "You look like you're carrying 2 watermelons." And I was like, wow. And at the time I was. Stuff, right? The stuff, the blocks. whatever it is, the unforgiveness, the hurt, the trauma, the woundedness. I was willingly carrying it, and he could see it. Whew. Yeah, everyone's an angel in our lives, right? Asking us to grow. That's huge. I love that. It's big. And we just are willing to receive it, right? Willing to receive it. I was willing to receive my Starbucks friend's message. I still remember. I don't want to carry watermelons unless I'm actually going to go to a picnic. Then I'll carry the watermelon. But yeah. So here's the thing, is he says that we need to understand the self. The first thing we need to know is that there are many facets to ourselves. 19th century poet Walt Whitman says it best in his poem, Song of Myself. Those of you who love Whitman will notice this. I was going to say, where is he? Lee Flowers, I love it. Thomas Kinney, we love Whitman. Do I contradict myself? Very well then, I contradict myself. I am large, I contain multitudes. Thank you, Lee, for saying that with me. Do I contradict myself? Yes, I contradict myself. I am large, I contain multitudes. So that's the issue, right? That's the issue. It's like there's a whole committee up there. It's all up there. So his work is very much inspired by Course in Miracles, and it's also very inspired by Carl Jung. And Carl Jung's understanding, y'all know, is a Swiss psychotherapist. His understanding that what Carl Jung came and did is he made us aware of the unconscious, and what he wanted us to do is bring together the conscious and the unconscious so that we could have this individuation, basically, is the idea. And what Carl Jung says and what Colleen Tippin says is that if we don't acknowledge that self, by the way, that's the shadow self, that self is going to still be there and it's going to project onto others. So that's why I stand here and I say to y'all, I'm stubborn. Because the more I see that about myself, the less I'm going to say to you, guess what, you're stubborn. Although unless you're JC and I tell her that. Sorry, Jan. Sorry. I just heard that. I did that. You're welcome. I just did that. I'm stubborn. Yeah. Whew. Let me move away because I don't want to feel it right now. So the other thing that he says is that we have a collective shadow. As countries, as nations, we have collective shadows. And what we do with that collective shadow is what we don't want to own about ourselves as a country, our history. What do we do with it? Project it onto other nations. That's the collective, national, and all countries do, right? All of them. It's just the collective shadow. So this is what, going back to Colleen Tipping, he's inspired by Jung's work on the archetypes, which he defined as universal inherited patterns that structure human experience. So, different aspects of ourselves, perhaps you may have the judge, the critical parent, the professor, the self-righteous self, right? Or the one that's always right. The princess. I'm not claiming that. The clown. The snoop. The boss. The damsel in distress. The white knight. It goes on and on and on and on. And as you know, then there's also the inner self, right? The divine self, that's also there. But here's the thing is these selves can sometimes dominate, right? Or what I like to say, I never say it dominates, I say it's the one that can be driving the bus. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to share with y'all, I'm going to breathe, because I'm going to share with y'all something that happened to me several weeks ago. And as soon as it happened, I felt tremendous shame. And I'm still working on that. And I also knew this is going to go in the sermon. And because I was like, I don't want to share this. It was like, but you have to share it. So bear with me as I breathe. Several weeks ago now, I took my son to school on a Saturday because he was doing a mock AP test, and dropped him off, then went back home, went back to get him. And it's Saturday, so I think, I'm not going to park in my usual space. I'm going to park in the driveway. And I noticed there's one lane, and it's a turnaround driveway. There's one lane there, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to create a second lane, because that's what we do at this school. We create second lanes, right? So I'm way at the front in the second lane, waiting for my son, and my cousin calls, so I'm just like, yeah, I'm at the school. I've been doing drop off and pick off every day. Thomas is out of town. I'm really tired, yada, 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 yada. Telling the story, right, as we do. Sorry, Thomas. Telling the story. I know. Feeling sad for myself, feeling like the damsel in distress. So somebody comes and knocks on my window, and she's like, ma'am, can you move? Because I need to go past. And I look at her and I say, well, no, this is how we do this at this school. I know, look at the look on Heather's face. Like, you're at Carnegie Vanguard. This is how, because remember, it's a mock test, so there's lots of different people. And I'm like, they just don't know. These are the rules here, right? This is what we do. So she walks away, and I'm talking to my cousin and still talking, and I say to my cousin, she went to go talk to the policeman. Yeah. So the policeman comes, knocks on my window, I open the window, he's like, ma'am, you need to move. And I look at him, he's like, ma'am, you need to be considerate. I didn't say anything. I moved. But I'm feeling, I'm a minister. I'm not considerate. They're going to take my ordination away. I'm not considerate. I have a church. They're going to think I'm not considerate. It was awful. It felt terrible. So I go park where I'm supposed to. My son comes out. He gets in the car, and I say, you aren't going to believe what happened. He's like, what? And I tell him, I was like, so the policeman makes me move. And I tell him what happened. He's like, so Mom, that second lane is for drop-off, not pickup. Which he's like, that way cars can move through. My self-righteous self, right? Myself that knows I'm right, myself that can be indignant, myself that was also in the story of damsel in distress, I'm tired, and myself that, and it's okay to have a self that's under-resourced, right? Myself that was under-resourced, and I don't make the best decisions from that spot. So awareness of that, right? Awareness of that. And I'm still forgiving myself for not being considerate. Because in that moment, I was not considerate. I'm just going to tell y'all now, I was not considerate. Whether I meant to or not be, I was not. So, thank you. Thank you, because it's hard for me to look. No. And if we do, you can't vote. That does sound like myself, doesn't it? So what is the work? What do we do? Obviously, recognize the one that's showing up, that dominant self, the one that's driving the bus, and surrender it and release it and let it go, right? And give it to the I am self. The I am self, that it has the spiritual intelligence. Here's the I am self that he writes. It exists above all others. It is the part of us that remains connected to the divine. It is the part of us that chose to be human for a while. It is a part of us that knows the truth of who we really are and why we are here and what our purpose is for being here. The I am self knows that there is no right or wrong, no good or bad, and it does not identify with the content of our lives. It simply loves us unconditionally. It doesn't judge us, and it never withholds forgiveness from us because it knows that there is nothing to forgive. And the higher self communicates its guidance and wisdom, and the more we listen and live from that I am self, the more we continue to build our spiritual intelligence. That's the work, right? That's the work. So in that moment, I could have said, I'm under-resourced, and I will move my car, right? That's simple. I know I'm under-resourced. I know I don't want to be told what to do, but I can do it. That's the other part of myself. Don't tell me what to do, right? Surrender that to the I am self. The I am self always knows that nothing wrong has ever taken place, and everything was or is in divine order, period. The I am self knows that nothing wrong has ever taken place, and everything was or is in divine order, period. Whew. Okay, that's the big work, y'all. So Derek Walcott, he's a poet and received the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1992. With his writing, he brought Caribbean literature to international attention. He was born in the West Indies. He grew up speaking Patois at home and English at school. And this poem is, for me, just a beautiful example of self-love, forgiveness, and reconciliation. So just get comfortable and let yourself just be rocked by these beautiful words. Love after love. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you. All your life, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit, feast on your life. Sit, feast on your life. Oh, I love y'all so much. Thank you for coming. Thank you for doing this work with me. Thanks for being on this journey. Amen.